In the pulsating core of downtown Los Angeles, a perplexing puzzle emerged that perpetually fascinates devotees of true crime across the globe. In the bleak midwinter of 2013, an enigma commenced to unfold that continues to give us goosebumps to this day. Elisa Lam, a young Canadian tourist, merely 21 years of age, evaporated without leaving vestiges behind. However, her vanishing act marked the inception of a narrative that would enthrall countless worldwide. Lam's last known location was within the fortified structure of the Stay on Main Hotel. Her peculiar behavior, recorded on the hotel's elevator surveillance system, was alarmingly erratic. She seemed to be plagued by invisible entities, her movements bizarrely inconsistent. This was the sighting of Elisa Lam. It wasn't until a grueling 2.5 weeks later, on February 19th, that her remains were located. The place of discovery? A water tank situated on the roof of the very hotel she resided in. It was a merciless revelation that triggered a tidal wave of terror and shock around the globe. The patrons of the hotel had lodged complaints about poor water pressure and an oddly colored flow from their taps. They were oblivious to the fact that the root cause was far more horrifying than they had ever presumed. Elisa Lam's demise unfolded into a riddle that rapidly seized global interest. The conditions were mystifying, laden with unaddressed queries and spine-chilling specifics. What led her to the water tank? Why was her demeanor so erratic in the elevator? Was it malicious intent or a horrific mishap? Its ambiguity, the coroner's report ruled her death an accident, with bipolar disorder pinpointed as a significant influence. But this verdict fell short of providing closure, instead raising more questions than it answered. The enigma enshrouding Elisa Lam's fatal end turned into a hotbed for speculation and conjecture, stoked by the case's surreal characteristics. From digital conspiracy theories to meticulous professional probes, the pursuit of truth morphed into a fixation for many. However, in spite of rigorous examination, the truth behind Elisa Lam's unfortunate fate continues to dodge comprehension. What transpired with Elisa Lam? What triggered her abnormal behavior? These inquiries linger unaddressed. Was last witnessed at the ominous Cecil Hotel on January 31st. Embark with us as we delve into the timeline preceding her mysterious vanishing act. It was an unremarkable day, or so it seemed, at the notorious Cecil Hotel. Situated in the pulsating center of downtown Los Angeles, the hotel has been steeped in enigma and fascination. On this particular occasion, however, it was about to inscribe yet another unsettling episode onto its dark ledger. Spotlight illuminates Elisa Lam, a genial, intelligent Canadian youth. She was in the metropolis for leisure, immersing herself in the vibrant atmosphere of Los Angeles. Her day unfolded like countless others until she arrived at the haunted corridors of the Cecil Hotel. Here, within the narrow confines of the hotel's elevator, the situation started spiraling into the bizarre. Recorded on CCTV was Elisa exhibiting conduct that can only be classified as capricious. She was seen frantically pushing several elevator buttons, oscillating between the inside and outside of the elevator and engaging in peculiar gesticulations. It was as though she was engaged in an odd version of hide and seek, possibly with an invisible entity. Her actions within the elevator were puzzling. Was she engulfed by fear, or merely toying around? Was she in solitude, or was there an unseen presence? These queries circled like vultures as investigators dissected the footage, seeking hints in her demeanor, her facial expressions, her body language. Her eccentric behavior was not only puzzling, but also deeply disturbing. It was this strange pantomime in the elevator that marked the last verified sighting of Elisa. The footage acted as a haunting introduction to the mystery that was about to unravel. In the intricate maze of the Cecil Hotel, amidst the monotonous drone of everyday existence, Elisa Lam was on the precipice of becoming an apparition. Her peculiar performance in the elevator, forever etched in grainy surveillance footage, were the final traces of her before she inexplicably evaporated into the ether. Elisa's actions in the elevator comprised the final glimpses of her prior to her enigmatic disappearance. Nearly a fortnight after she vanished, Elisa Lam's inanimate form was recovered in the most implausible of locations. The chronicle of events culminating in this gruesome revelation is as eerie as it is rare. On the 19th of February 2013, the personnel at the Stay on Main Hotel, situated in downtown Los Angeles, stumbled upon a macabre finding. It was an ordinary day, initially marked by trivial grievances from patrons about inadequate water pressure and tarnished water. They were oblivious to the fact that these seemingly insignificant issues would pave to a horrifying truth. The hotel's maintenance crew, reacting to the critiques, opted to inspect the water tanks atop the premises. As they pried open one of the containers, they were met with a sight beyond comprehension. There, Suspended in the water was Elisa Lam's remains. The young Canadian tourist, unaccounted for since January's end, was located in an area beyond anyone's wildest. The unearthing sent tremors throughout the lodging establishment and further afield. The news of the discovery propagated rapidly, seizing global headlines. The very woman who had been spotted acting peculiarly in a hotel lift was now the focal point of a tragic and baffling revelation. Yet, with the unearthing followed more queries than resolutions. How did Elisa find herself in the water tank? Were there any indications of criminal involvement? And most crucially, what precipitated her premature demise? As sleuths delved further into the incident, the conundrum thickened. What commenced as a missing person incident had transmuted into a labyrinth of enigma and conjecture. Despite the horrifying unearthing, the events surrounding Elisa's demise continued to be cloaked in ambiguity. The coroner would soon conclude her death as an accidental drowning, but it could not stem the surge of questions and theories. The recovery of Elisa Lam's corpse only intensified the enigma surrounding her passing. The post-mortem analysis fostered further queries rather than elucidating previously held doubts. The atmosphere was dense with expectancy as the pathologist's conclusions were unraveled. It was a juncture that was assumed to furnish cogency, to disclose the actuality. Instead, it only intensified the enigma enveloping the end of Elisa Lam. The medical examiner had declared her demise as an unintended submersion, an inference which puzzled many. After all, how does a youthful lady find herself in a hotel's terrace water reservoir unintentionally? A riddle that persisted to confound even the most experienced detectives. Subsequently, there was the influence of Elisa's bipolar disorder. It was noted as a considerable element adding to her demise. But what did signify? How did her psychological health circumstances factor into her tragic culmination, the Cecil Hotel? We are informed from the past that Elisa had a recurring battle with her medication. She often opted against consuming it. This resulted in a tumultuous chain of emotional conditions, some of which could have feasibly led to capricious behavior. But could it have guided her to the water tank? Some mused over the medication she had ingested. The post-mortem report disclosed traces of the pharmaceuticals utilized to control bipolar disorder in her system. But were these medications consumed habitually, or had Elisa ingested them amidst a period psychological disturbance? We can't affirm definitively. The post-mortem analysis, with all its objective particulars, failed to vividly portray conclusive moments. It couldn't decipher the odd behavior recorded in the hotel elevator. It couldn't justify her path to the water reservoir. It couldn't narrate to us why Elisa Lam, a 21-year-old Canadian scholar, confronted such a catastrophic conclusion. The post-mortem analysis left numerous queries about Elisa's final moments unresolved. Her narrative serves as a poignant reminder of the intricacies of mental health and the numerous ways it can influence our existence. But ultimately, it stands as an enduring enigma of Elisa Lam's ultimate days. The perplexing elements enveloping Elisa Lam's demise ignited an array of conjectures. This baffling scenario has propagated an assortment of suppositions, each as captivating as the predecessor. A dominant hypothesis infers malevolent intent. Some speculate that the odd behavior Lam displayed in the elevator video might suggest she was being stalked or intimidated. Critics focus on the anomalous conditions of her death. The rooftop water receptacle where her body was discovered was challenging to reach, prompting queries about her ability to access it without aid. An alternative postulation presents that Lam's death resulted from an intense psychotic outbreak, potentially intensified by her bipolar condition. In the spine-chilling elevator footage, Lam appears to gesture erratically and seemingly converse with an invisible entity. Could this have been a projection of her psychological disorder, leading her to voluntarily enter the water tank? Seeking solace and answers, Lam's parents lodged a wrongful death litigation. They accused the hotel of negligence, asserting its failure to examine and identify hazards in the hotel that posed an unjustifiable risk of danger to Lam and other hotel inhabitants. The settlement of lawsuit, unfortunately, did not offer a lucid explanation for the horrific events that transpired. Some individuals gravitate towards the otherworldly, implying that the Cecil Hotel's ominous past and notoriety for inexplicable fatalities contributed to Lam's downfall. This theory, while engrossing, fails to present tangible evidence, only augmenting the enigma of the case. As for the truth, it remains veiled in obscurity. Irrespective of the countless theories and comprehensive investigations, the actuality behind Elisa Lam's heart-rending departure remains elusive. The case incessantly ensnares and confounds, acting as a stark reminder of the unresolved enigmas that frequently dwell in the recesses of our existence.
In the mid-1980s, the idyllic haven of Honolulu was plagued by an ominous presence. This was an era when the island's serenity was disrupted by an insidious threat, a merciless beast concealed in the "This was the time of the Honolulu Strangler," an unidentified serial murderer whose chilling deeds permanently stained Hawaii's chronicles from 1985 to 1986. The Strangler's victims, all females, were found violated and strangled, their hands mercilessly bound behind their backs. Each crime scene revealed a horrific image of a beast preying on vulnerability. The victims were deliberately chosen. They were hunted when they were most exposed, waiting at bus stops, isolated in parking lots, their defenses down in the presumed safety of their island domicile. But there was no refuge from this insidious menace. Each victim was a brutal testament to the Strangler's ruthless precision and the terrifying ease with which he eluded capture. With every ticking moment, the fear escalated. The Strangler, not merely a murderer, he was a spectre, a phantom that cast a horrifying darkness over the sun-drenched beaches and palm-fringed avenues of Honolulu. As the number of casualties increased, so did the anxiety. The authorities, their resources stretched to the limit, were on heightened vigilance. The FBI was summoned, a task force was constituted, and the pursuit for the Honolulu Strangler amplified. Yet the horror was far from culmination. There remained elusive, perpetually one stride ahead, leaving a pathway of devastated lives in his aftermath. The island's sanctuary was under assault, its sense of security obliterated, its inhabitants living in dread of the hidden menace that haunted them. Hence, Honolulu, the tropical paradise, underwent a transformation. The palm trees continued to sway, the beaches still glistened under the sun, but the Strangler's shadow loomed ominously. The authorities were on heightened vigilance, but the horror was far from culmination. The initial casualty, Vicky Purdy, was the genesis of a terrifying sequence. Merely 25 years of age, Vicky was a military spouse, her existence tragically abbreviated. Her lifeless form surfaced on edges of Kihi Lagoon, a grim foreteller of the dread that was about to unfurl. Regina Sakamoto followed suit. Vivacious and driven, Regina was a tender 17, the most juvenile of the victims. An ordinary school day turned into an unending nightmare when she missed her bus, never to see her family again. Vicky, Regina's end, came at Kihi Lagoon, her life snuffed out in a similarly savage fashion. Denise Hughes, the third to be claimed, was a 21-year-old administrative assistant journeying to work when she was abruptly seized. Her remains were uncovered days later, discarded near a brook. The resemblances between the victims were unnerving. Denise, too, had been asphyxiated, her hands fettered behind her. Louise Medeiros became the fourth casualty. En route back from her siblings' dwelling, she was kidnapped from a bus stop. The 36-year-old was found asphyxiated, hands bound, her remains forsaken in gorge. The sequence was evident, the city's terror tangible. Lastly, Linda Pessier. A 26-year-old real estate agent, Linda was last spotted by her cohabitant before she disappeared. Her lifeless form was found by sightseers, raising the body count to 5. Linda, like the others, was asphyxiated and left with her hands restrained behind her. The lives of these women were as varied as they were analogous. Diverse in age and lifestyles, yet their demise was disturbingly identical. Restrained, asphyxiated and deserted, the trademark of a remorseless serial killer. Rising death count left the city teetering on the cusp of hysteria. In the heart of terror, an individual of interest surfaced. Howard Gay. As the dread instilled by the Honolulu Strangler paralyzed Hawaii, law enforcement agencies were desperate to uncover the truth. For a while, it appeared they might have stumbled upon it in Howard Gay. A resident of the local community, Gay found himself ensnared in the web of investigation, apprehended due to his potential involvement in these horrifying atrocities. But what set the law enforcement's sights on Gay? The answer lays in a combination of incidental evidence and witness testimonies. Onlookers reported spotting a light-colored van, akin to one Gay possessed, and a man of Caucasian or mixed race, resembling Gay's persona, associated with of the victim's vehicles. But the linkages to Gay extended beyond these points. Two significant women in his life, his former spouse and current lover, surfaced with potentially damning revelations. They disclosed Gay's fascination with bondage, a harrowing similarity to the victims discovered with their hands restrained behind them. This revelation heaped another layer of suspicion onto Gay, deepening the gloom that hovered over him. Nonetheless, suspicion and incidental evidence do not equate to culpability. Despite the escalating accusations, the irrefutable evidence against Howard Gay was insufficient, could not conclusively identify him, and there were no discernible physical connections tying him to these horrifying deeds. The investigators were left grappling with a suspect they could not conclusively link to the crimes, a conundrum with absent elements. In an unexpected turn of events, Howard Gay, a man previously deemed the principal suspect, found himself discharged from detention. The absence of conclusive proof compelled the authorities to set him free, pushing them back to the drawing board and restoring Gay's freedom. Yet does not equate proof, and due to the deficiency of solid evidence, Gay was liberated. The spectre of the Honolulu Strangler continued to overshadow Hawaii, the culprit remaining elusive and the enigma yet to be unraveled. Then, as abruptly as they had commenced, the homicides ceased. It was the year 1986, and the panic that had ensnared Honolulu was suddenly quelled, not with a resounding explosion, but with a chilling, disconcerting tranquility. No additional killings were attributed to this offender, the elusive Honolulu Strangler. The women of Hawaii could release a breath of relief, but the lingering tension was far from dissipated. The creature responsible for these appalling deeds was still at liberty, his identity veiled in enigma. In a resolute attempt to deliver justice to the victims and their kin, a law enforcement unit was founded, supplemented with aid from the FBI. This was no conventional inquiry. It was battle against the clock, a search for an apparition, a chase after an enigma that had left a path of destruction in its aftermath. In spite of their earnest endeavors, the unit faced obstacles. The case resembled a jigsaw puzzle with absent segments, a book with vacant pages. Each lead appeared to guide to a cul-de-sac, every hint a hallucination. The unit was hunting for a needle in a haystack, yet the needle seemed to be forged from vapor. The principal suspect, Howard Gay, was detained, but due to a scarcity of solid proof, he was subsequently liberated. His former spouse and sweetheart provided potentially damning details about his fetish for bondage, but it fell short of securing his conviction. Gay departed this life 2003, leaving a wake of queries and doubts. The case of the Honolulu Strangler remains unresolved. It's a petrifying narrative of an unseen predator who managed to elude the clutch of the law, leaving a lasting impression of dread and uncertainty. It's a harsh warning that even in paradise, unidentified threats skulk, biding their time in the darkness, primed to pounce when least anticipated. This day, the Honolulu Strangler remains an enigma, a petrifying testament to the unidentified threats that skulk in paradise.
Picture a man sketching a portrait with a charming smile. Now imagine that same man leaving a trail of bodies in his wake. This is the chilling tale of an unidentified serial killer known as the Doodler. In the midst of the vibrant 70s, a sinister figure lurked in the shadows of San Francisco. Between January 1974 and September 1975, an individual later dubbed the Doodler wreaked havoc, believed to be responsible for between 6 and 16 murders and 3 assaults. This shadowy figure targeted white males, whom he met at gay establishments, sketching them before committing the act of fatal stabbing. Despite the ominous nature of these crimes, the Doodler remains unidentified. Descriptions indicate a young black man of a slender build, but the reluctance of survivors to testify left the case unresolved. The Doodler's reign of terror left an indelible mark on San Francisco, his chilling legacy, a constant reminder of the fear and uncertainty that gripped the city during that time. As we delve into this mystery, let us remember the fear and uncertainty that gripped San Francisco in the mid-70s. In the winter of January 1974, the city of San Francisco was unaware of the terror about to unfold. The first known strike of the Doodler paints a chilling picture. The city, brimming with life and love, was about to welcome a predator into its midst. Our story begins with an unsuspecting victim, a white male, who was drawn into the Doodler's web at a popular gay establishment. With a flick of a pencil, the Doodler sketched his prey, an artistic prelude to the deadly finale. The discovery of the body the following day was a shock to the community. The victim was found lifeless, his body bearing multiple stab wounds, the signature of the Doodler. The authorities were called to the scene, their initial bewilderment echoing the city's collective confusion. This wasn't a common mugging or a random act of violence. It was the work of a calculated killer. The initial police investigations got underway, with detectives working tirelessly to piece together the fragments of this grisly puzzle. The evidence pointed to a young black man, tall with a slender build, who used his sketching talent to lure his victims. But beyond this vague description, the trail went cold. The murderer was a phantom, hiding in the shadows of the city he tormented. As the police dug deeper, they found themselves knee-deep in a sea of unanswered questions. Who was this mysterious artist-turned-killer? Why did he choose to murder his subjects after sketching them? And most importantly, how could he be stopped? Each question added a new layer of complexity to the case, and with every passing day, the list grew longer. The city was on edge, the fear palpable in the air. The Doodler had made his presence known, and San Francisco was his canvas. The stage was set. The Doodler had made his first mark. The Doodler was just getting started. He sketched, he charmed, and then he struck. As we delve deeper into the year 1974, a pattern of chilling brutality emerges. The Doodler, as he would later be named, was no novice. He had a method, a signature, if you will, a macabre dance of death that began with the stroke of a pencil. He would frequent the bustling gay establishments of San Francisco, sketchbook in hand, ready to charm the unsuspecting. His targets? White males drawn in by his artistic talent and disarming demeanor. But behind the allure of his sketches lay a sinister purpose. Once his subjects were at ease, he would strike, leaving them fatally wounded. With each passing month, the body count grew. Each victim bore the same telltale signs: a sketch, a stab wound, a life abruptly and brutally cut short. The community, once vibrant and carefree, was now gripped with fear. Every new sketch found at a crime scene was a chilling reminder of the monster in their midst. As the killings continued, the pressure on the San Francisco Police Department mounted. The city was crying out for justice, for an end to the reign of terror. But the Doodler remained elusive, a phantom hiding behind the facades of normalcy and artistry. Even as the year drew to a close, there was no respite. The Doodler struck again and again, his violent spree seemingly unstoppable. The city was on edge, the joy of the holiday season marred by the shadow of the serial killer. And yet, despite the fear and the pressure, the Doodler remained at large. By the time the bells rang in the new year, the Doodler had claimed an alarming number of lives, but his reign of terror was far from over. The city of San Francisco, once a beacon of freedom and acceptance, was now held captive by fear and uncertainty. By the end of 1974, the Doodler had left a grim mark on San Francisco. His silent sketches spoke volumes of the terror that had gripped the city, a terror that would continue to haunt its inhabitants for years to come. 1975 brought no respite. The Doodler continued his sinister spree. The year opened with an air of dread, a chilling continuation of the previous year's horrors. The Doodler, an artistic assassin, was not yet finished with his macabre masterpiece. He was painting a picture of terror with the city of San Francisco as his canvas. In the early months of 1975, the Doodler struck again. His victims, always white males, often found in the city's vibrant gay establishments. He was not just a killer, he was an artist, sketching his victims before he delivered the fatal blow. A chilling blend of creativity and cruelty that would become his trademark. His weapon of choice? A knife, used with chilling precision. The last known attack of the Doodler was unlike the others. This time, there was a survivor, a man who lived to describe the face of his attacker. His account was detailed, providing investigators with a clearer picture of the suspect. A black man, aged between 19 and 25, about 6 feet tall with a slender build. It was the break the police had been waiting for. A sketch artist brought the description to life, creating the first tangible image of the elusive killer. Yet, even with a face to the suspect, the Doodler remained an enigma. He was a phantom haunting the city, leaving a trail of bodies and broken lives in his wake. The police had a face, a sketch, but the Doodler was still out there, hidden in the shadows of the city he terrorized. Despite a face to the name, the Doodler remained a shadowy figure, elusive and deadly. More than 4 decades have passed, yet the Doodler's identity remains concealed. This is a tale that has been woven into the fabric of San Francisco's history, a chilling mystery that continues to intrigue and horrify in equal measure. Let's take a moment to recap the key points of the Doodler case. Between the years of 1974 and 75, A faceless menace stalked the streets of San Francisco. This individual, known only as the Doodler, is believed to have been responsible for between 6 and 16 murders and 3 assaults. His victims were white males whom he met at gay establishments. It wasn't a random act of violence, but a calculated and precise one. He would sketch his victims before fatally striking them down. The reluctance of survivors to testify was a significant factor in the case remaining unresolved. At the time, societal pressures faced by closeted gay men were immense. Fear of exposure, of ridicule, and of prejudice kept these individuals silent. The police, despite having a suspect in their grasp, were unable to secure a conviction due to this silence. Fast forward to the present day, and the case of the Doodler is far from forgotten. With recent advancements in DNA technology, there is a glimmer of hope. Evidence is being re-examined, and forensic genetic genealogy is being considered as a tool to finally unmask the Doodler. A hefty reward of $100,000 has also been offered for information leading to the killer's arrest. Who was the Doodler? We may never know, but his chilling legacy continues to haunt us, a grim reminder of a time when fear was sketched in the shadows of San Francisco. Colonial Parkway, Virginia, a picturesque route transformed into a hunting ground for a merciless predator. During the twilight years of the 80s, this scenic pathway was rendered the canvas for a sequence of gruesome murders. An unidentified assailant preyed on young lovers in their most defenseless moments, isolated and oblivious. From the year 1986 to 89, a minimum of 8 vibrant lives were abruptly silenced, marking the beginning of the haunting saga known as the Colonial Parkway Murders. Each pair was discovered in their autos, their intimate moments brutally terminated. The techniques of these killings were as diverse as they were savage, constricting, gunshot injuries, and knifing. Yet in an eerie turn, there was an absolute absence of evidence indicating robbery or sexual attack. This was a murderer who desired not monetary acquisition, but the adrenaline of the hunt, the gratification of dominance. The victims, varied in their upbringings, were all abruptly ripped from their prime. They all shared a commonality. They found themselves at the wrong place at the wrong time, falling prey to a merciless predator. Every homicide enhanced the escalating terror that held the community captive, warping the picturesque Colonial Parkway into an arena of trepidation. Despite relentless endeavors of the authorities, the cases stalled. The identity of the murderer remained obscure, the motivations ambiguous. The Colonial Parkway killer had seemingly evaporated, leaving behind a trail of unresolved queries and broken existences. The eerie enigma of these unresolved homicides continues to cast a shadow over the serene beauty of the Colonial Parkway. The phantom of an unidentified murderer cast a long, chilling shadow over Virginia, with every possible clue leading to a dead end and justice remaining elusive. The very name, Colonial Parkway Murders, echoed like a menacing emblem of an unchecked predator, lurking in the shadows, preying on young, unsuspecting couples in the most secluded of places. The meticulous precision of this anonymous murderer's method of operation, coupled with a mind-boggling lack of evidence, served only to augment the ever-growing sense of terror and uncertainty within the community. Law enforcement, despite their relentless pursuit and determination, found themselves grappling with a shadow, the true identity this killer eluding them at every turn. The phantom of the Parkway, having cast its long, dreadful shadow, vanished as mysteriously as it had emerged, leaving in its wake a chilling series of unsolved homicides, a myriad of unanswered queries, and a community forever marked by the invisible scars of its reign of terror. In 2024, the silence was broken by an unexpected revelation. An unsettling discovery seemingly from nowhere created waves in the crime-solving fraternity. The elusive menace of Colonial Parkway was finally given an identity. Alan W. Wilmer, Sr. Wilmer, who had been a humble fisherman and who had met his end in 2017, was now posthumously associated with 2 of the Parkway homicides. You may wonder, how did this discovery take? The key lies in the marvels of contemporary science. DNA proof. Years after he drew his final breath, Wilmer's DNA was found to correspond with the evidence collected from the crime scenes. A specter from the past, now connected to the present through the helix of genetic code. The fisherman, once quietly casting his nets into the Virginia waters, was now unmasked as a threat that had spread a wave of fear across the Parkway. Quite the irony, you might believe. It's nearly poetic. The aftermath of this posthumous identification churned a tempest of inquiries. What if Wilmer was still among the living? What if this revelation had been unveiled earlier? The response to these conjectures is as haunting as the crimes themselves. If Wilmer was still alive, he would have found himself facing charges for the murders. The silent threat have been confined. But this revelation served a purpose beyond just attributing guilt. It represented justice, although belated, for the victims. It meant closure for the families who had endured torturous silence awaiting answers. However, identifying Wilmer did not conclude this twisted narrative. Law enforcement agencies were still confronted with a series of unresolved homicides. The shadow of the Parkway menace had been exposed, but the darkness hadn't completely receded. This revelation, although momentous, marked merely the onset of a fresh chapter in the Colonial Parkway homicides, dedicated to the tireless quest for truth and justice, a chapter where silence was no longer permissible. At last, an identity to the faceless terror that once skulked in the shadows of the Parkway. Alan W. Wilmer Sr., a seemingly average individual, concealed a sinister secret. Picture this, a local fisherman, blending into the daily rhythm of life by the serene waters of Virginia. An everyday sight, it would seem. But cloaked behind this commonplace image was a terrifying reality. Introducing Alan W. Wilmer Sr., a man whose life mirrored the tranquil waters he regularly visited. Wilmer was a man of the sea, a Virginia fisherman, and by all appearances, a regular guy. His profession, far removed from the hustle and bustle of city living, enabled him to mingle unnoticed among the crowd. He was a master of not by altering his looks, but by the sheer virtue of being unremarkable. What was particularly spine-chilling about Wilmer's case was his capacity to remain undetected for an extended period. The man had a spotless record, an unblemished page in the eyes of the law. His DNA, the one irrefutable evidence that could associate him with these horrific crimes, was missing from law enforcement databases. This void allowed him to slip away, to pick up his life as usual, while bereaved families grieved and investigators pursued phantoms. But every hidden secret, no matter how deeply it's buried, eventually comes to light. In Wilmer's case, the truth surfaced posthumously. DNA evidence gathered after his demise in 2017 conclusively linked him to the slayings of David L. Knobling, Robin M. Edwards, and Teresa Lynn Spa Howell. Crimes that were committed over 3 decades ago, their haunting echoes still reverberate in the quiet corners of southeastern Virginia. If Wilmer were among us today, would be standing trial for all 3 homicides. But destiny had a different path. He dodged the grasp of justice in life, but could not escape the piercing scrutiny of truth after his passing. A wolf, cloaked in sheep's clothing, his true nature remained hidden until after his demise. But with the identification of Wilmer, the case was far from concluded. The curtain on one chapter of ominous narrative may have fallen, yet the story is far from complete. The Colonial Parkway Murders, a gripping chain of heinous acts that clutched Virginia in a grip of terror, remain enigmatic, with a fog of questions and doubts still surrounding them. Sure, Alan W. Wilmer Sr., the late local fisherman, was implicated in 3 of the murders, but what about the others? The shadow of uncertainty lingers on as the investigation rolls on tirelessly, seeking the truth hidden in the complex maze of the past. They don't just seek answers, they seek links. Links to Wilmer, links to the victims, links that might guide them to the overlooked fragments of this disquieting jigsaw puzzle. The public's cooperation is solicited. Anyone who had ties with or could possess a sliver of the truth. Every discussion, every recollection, every seemingly trivial detail could be the key to untwisting the remaining of the Colonial Parkway murders. This is not just a narrative of brutal crimes. It's a tale of tenacity, of an unyielding pursuit of justice. The Colonial Parkway Murders, a tale of terror, mystery, and a relentless pursuit of truth that continues even to this day. As we probe deeper into this chilling tale, we're reminded that the for-truth is ceaseless. The pursuit continues for the victims, for their families, and for justice. What could possibly cause a whole family to evaporate into the ether, leaving all their possessions behind, including their cherished household pet? This is the spine-chilling query tied to the baffling vanishing of the Jamison family. Visualize this: Bobby Jamison, his wife Sherilyn, and their adolescent daughter Madison, apparently content with their ordinary existence, nestled in the picturesque countryside of Eufaula, Oklahoma. An ordinary family, indistinguishable from the rest. Yet, on the 8th of October 2009, they abruptly disappeared as if snatched from the very surface of the planet. The Jamisons, however, were far from common, and their inexplicable absence has confounded both the police and the public for over 10 years. The family's vehicle was discovered deserted on an unpaved path in the mountains, leagues away from their residence. Inside the locked truck was their emaciated pet, evidently left in haste during their sudden departure. But there's more to this. The vehicle was brimming with the family's possessions as if they were preparing for a journey or a relocation. Apparel, personal effects, even a substantial amount of money. Roughly $32,000 were discovered within the truck, an untouched fortune, alone in a forsaken vehicle in the middle of nowhere. As if this wasn't perplexing enough, the family's last known actions added another layer of complexity to the enigma. Surveillance footage from their dwelling exhibited Bobby and Sherilyn loading their truck in what can only be described as a hypnotic manner. Their movements were mechanical, their faces devoid of emotion, and their interaction minimal. It was as if they were engrossed in a universe of their own. Most bone-chilling part, however, was the surveillance footage capturing the couple packing in an ominously hypnotic state. As the case unraveled, horrifying hypotheses began to surface. The initial spine-chilling conjecture revolved around the family's supposed participation in narcotics trafficking. The Jamisons were not affluent, yet their vehicle was found with a considerable sum of money. The revelation of this cash, in conjunction with their abrupt vanishing, led some to surmise they may have been entangled in illegal deeds. Was it feasible they were caught in a dangerous web with the wrong individuals, culminating in their premature demise? A bone-chilling contemplation indeed. Equally unsettling was the supposition of a bitter family discord. Bobby Jamison had been embroiled in a vehement legal confrontation with father. Allegations of threats and violence punctuated the legal battle, leading some to guess that this internal conflict could have escalated to a deadly magnitude. Could their own relatives have been the executioners? The spine-tingling. Introducing an uncanny element to these postulations, a peculiar note was discovered in the family's abode. Authored by Sherilyn, it contained references to death and a spiritual war. The letter, brimming with bleak reflections and foreboding implications, was as perplexing as it was disturbing. Was it a plea for assistance, an indication of mental strife, or a hint towards their destiny? These conjectures, as macabre and troubling as they were, offered plausible explanations. However, they were built on conjecture and indirect evidence, leaving a plethora of unanswered questions. The involvement in narcotics trafficking, the acrid lawsuit, the enigmatic letter, each element contributed to a somber narrative, but none could definitively clarify the fate of the Jamison family. None of these theories could provide a conclusive explanation for the family's sudden vanishing. In 2013, 4 years since they disappeared, a somber disclosure emerged and nestled within the dense forests of Eufaula, Oklahoma. Skeletal remains were accidentally discovered. The eerie scene indicated a family, presumably 2 parents, and their offspring. These bones were thought to belong to the lost Jamison clan, a conclusion confirmed in July of the subsequent year. The prolonged had ultimately culminated in a tragic finale. However, this revelation did not yield the anticipated resolution. Despite the affirmative identification, the reason behind their untimely end remained veiled in enigma. No trace of trauma, no evident marks malevolent acts, nothing that could navigate the investigators towards a conclusive understanding. Instead of elucidating the mystery, the discovery only birthed additional queries. Why were they present in such a location? What circumstances led to their premature demise? The conundrum deepened, with the answers appearing further out of reach than ever before. Despite in-depth probes, the enigma surrounding the Jamison family's vanishing act remains unraveled. Over the span of numerous years, both the police and freelance detectives have been tenaciously pursuing clarity, examining every possible clue, scrutinizing every fragment of proof. Yet the puzzle stays unresolved. The dearth of decisive evidence perpetually cloaks the case in an aura of ambiguity, resulting in more quandaries than solutions. Each discovered object, each piece of surveillance video, each interrogation all serves as a fragment of the jigsaw. In spite of all exertions, the overall image remains blurred. Assumptions abound indeed, some feasible, others outlandish, but none have managed to pierce the riddle that is the Jamison family's sudden absence. Nonetheless, the lack of a satisfactory explanation doesn't equate to indifference. Quite the opposite. The enduring puzzle of the Jamison family has only kindled public fascination, morphing their sorrowful narrative into a subject of extensive conjecture and disputation. Web-based detectives, devotees of true crime, even those who generally avoid such somber subjects, find themselves ensnared in the convoluted mystery that this case unveils. Their narrative has proven so captivating that it was spotlighted on the Investigation Discovery series Disappeared, broadcasting their cryptic saga to a broader viewership. The delves into the known particulars of the case, laying out the facts in a manner that is at once chilling and gripping, keeping spectators riveted, even though they are aware that, at present, there is no closure to this narrative. The sorrowful narrative of the Jamison family remains one of the most baffling, unresolved enigmas of our era. A family disappeared, leaving behind only remnants and an avalanche of unresolved queries. Consequently, the verity persists, a testament to our inherent human drive to seek solutions, to decode mysteries, and most significantly, to eternally remember those who have vanished without leaving a trail. The baffling disappearance of the Jamison clan serves as a stark warning of how abruptly life can veer into the realm of the inexplicable. As we traverse this puzzling mystery, we've sifted through the bewildering vanishing act, the ominous conjectures, the grisly revelation, and the lingering enigma that shrouds this peculiar episode. They evaporated into thin air, leaving in their wake only an emaciated canine, their personal effects, and a deeply disquieting surveillance recording. Their mortal remains were unearthed years later, but the absence of a determined cause of death only deepened the obscurity surrounding the case. This calamity has etched an indelible mark, not just on the close-knit community of Eufaula, Oklahoma, but also on a broader audience. It's an eerie narrative that perpetually perplexes and enthralls both aficionados of true crime narratives and seasoned sleuths. Hypotheses are plentiful, from suspected involvement in illicit narcotics trade to a venomous family conflict. Yet none provide a definitive resolution. As we plunge deeper into the abyss of the unknown, a single query persists. What transpired with the Jamison clan on that ill-starred day in October 2009?